Hi, my name is Kevin. I passed the July 2018 California bar exam, and this video is on what the actual exam is like the day of and how to prepare for it. So jumping right into it, I took the exam at the LA Convention Center. That was one of the 5 or 6 places in California that you could take the exam, and I was pretty glad I took it there. I went and I booked my hotel 6 weeks prior to exam day because I knew a lot of people would be taking that exam, and I wanted to be sure that I got the hotel that I felt most comfortable with. I went and I spent extra money to stay at a hotel I knew would be very quiet and accommodating. I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm not recommending that everybody does that. There's other hotels that are just as fine, but for me, based upon my research, I found that that was gonna be the hotel that would work out best for me. It was right next to the convention center. It was a short 2-minute walk or so, and I knew that if I stayed there, I would be able to get a good night's sleep, which is well worth the money. The day before the exam, I got up at the exact same time that I was planning to get up the day of the exam. I went through my entire routine, including eating breakfast and getting my materials, and I even timed myself when I walked from my hotel to the convention center and the actual test room to see how long it would take me. So I knew the day of the exam roughly how long it would take me so I wouldn't be anxious about getting there on time. So the day before the exam, I actually walked into the room where we were going to be taking the exam. People were setting up the tables and chairs, and I was fortunate that I was able to walk in and see how big the tables were, so I knew where my materials would be placed and how big the chairs were, where the bathrooms were in relation to where I would likely be sitting, and all of that stuff. It was very helpful because I wanted to take as many variables off the table so that the day of the exam I could only focus on performing on what I had been studying for 3 months prior. I highly recommend that everybody does this. Even if it sounds silly and a waste of time, trust me, on the day of the exam, having that familiarity with the room is going to make you feel that much better. After I went and I saw the room, I walked back to my hotel and I just took it easy, relaxed. I was by the pool, I kind of did a little workout, and then at night I briefly reviewed some things that I knew would be on the exam. And when I mean brief, I mean only like 20 minutes of studying, and it was limited mainly to professional responsibility. I knew that professional responsibility was going to be on the exam because it always is in the writing section. And so I wanted to just briefly go over the lecture notes that Barbary provided here and just scan it over and get some of those basic ideas refreshed in my head. Other than that, I didn't do any studying. I just worked on just relaxing and having a good time and realizing that I had already put in all the time and effort and there wasn't much that was going to move the needle the day of the exam. I made sure I had all my materials ready and I coordinated to make sure that I knew where I was going the day of the exam. Also, the day before the exam, I made sure not to eat stuff that was too heavy, too salty, or too fatty so that I could, relax and enjoy myself but not burden myself when I tried to sleep and throw myself off. I believe I had pasta as opposed to pizza, which is definitely what I wanted, but I decided, hey, I'll have it after the exam and it'll be that much better. So I just kept it pretty simple. I didn't have really any caffeine, if I remember, after about 12 o'clock, so that it was out of my system, and I just relaxed up by the pool. I remember seeing there were some studies indicating that if you have sufficient vitamin D intake, it could actually help you sleep at night. And I know when I was studying for the exam, I was hardly outside at all, so it felt really good to just relax up there and take it easy and know that I did all that I could up until that point. Now, the day of the exam. This day was almost surreal. When you wake up, you feel like, wow, I've been thinking about this day for a long time, but hopefully you'll feel the same way I did. I woke up and I felt pretty good. I felt pretty confident because I knew that everyone was going to be in the same boat as me. Everyone was going to be stressed out and anxious, and all of the pass rates and all of the tests and every lawyer who's ever passed the bar exam went through the exact same thing. And I knew that if I studied really hard for those 3 months, that day I would feel as confident as I could be. And fortunately, I felt pretty good that day of. I was a little nervous, as anyone will be, but you just got to keep cool and realize you've done all you can. And so the day of the exam, I woke up, I got ready just like I did the day before, had a good breakfast, and I walked down to the convention center, and there was just a million people there waiting, and they're all stressed, they're in their own little circles. Naturally, you'll probably end up seeing people that you went to law school with. You'll go chit-chat with them and probably say, oh man, I'm so stressed out, and yada yada. and you're kind of talking, but you're hardly listening because you're just waiting for the exam to begin. And that's normal. And one of the key things I'd keep in mind, though, is that you don't get there and start taking the exam right away. You usually show up, and for us, we waited for, I think, over an hour before we even got in to the exam and started going over the instructions prior to actually taking the exam, which is a big shock to me. So coupled with kind of what it was like, I would recommend that you don't take a ton of caffeine right in the morning before you go to your exam. I would recommend bringing a coffee or a 5-hour energy or whatever you take with you and having it in your pocket. You can't take it into your exam room, but there's going to be trash cans outside, and I would take it before you actually get called in to go. There's going to be thousands of people there, so you'll have plenty of advance notice prior to actually going inside to take your caffeine. So I would just bring it with you. If you don't, then you're going to be taking a lot of caffeine before you go, and you'll be really anxious and hyped up, and it'll kind of wear off by the time you begin your exam, which is not where you want to be. So in addition to bringing your caffeine, I'd also recommend bringing a small snack bar and a little bit of water too before the exam, because you will have that time period where you're just waiting. And that waiting and that anxiety and that stress will start to wear on your body a little bit. And if you could settle yourself down by having a little bit of a granola bar or, you know, a little water, I know that that really helped me a lot. So I'd recommend bringing those things as well. Also, when you go up there and you see everybody stressed out and anxious, try to ignore the people who are being negative and saying, oh, well, I'm just going to take it next time, and oh, I didn't study enough, and yada yada, and then doubting yourself and thinking, oh man, I should have probably studied more. But at that point, it's too late to do anything, and you've studied a ton, and you probably studied more than most people. So just realize that if you're watching this video, you probably care more than a lot of the people I saw the day of the exam. Another thing I'd recommend is knowing that the room will probably be a little colder than you're used to. So I actually wore this jacket the day of the exam. I wanted it to be a zip jacket so that I wouldn't get caught, you know, trying to put it over my head or anything. I had earplugs as well the day of the exam, which I had studied with for the months leading up to the exam. And so with a zip jacket, I mean, these are the logistical things you kind of have to think about. With a zip jacket, you know you're not going to go over your head, so you're not going to pop out your earplugs, which, you know, sounds kind of crazy to get that granular, but that's how serious I was about the exam. So I had a zip-up sweater and earplugs that I practiced with for the 3 months leading up to the exam as well. Now, once you get to that exam convention center, there's going to be lots of people, and they're eventually going to say, okay, everybody line up, it's time to go in. You're going to have your little exam sheet and your bag full of your pens and your earplugs, and everybody's going to walk in, and it's like the death march. But at a certain level, it actually feels kind of good. You feel that, okay, finally, the anxiety is going away. I'm actually going to take this exam that I've been studying so hard for. You're going to line up. Everybody's going to walk in. Some people will have to be, you know, off to the side while they put some, you know, stuff that they can't bring into the exam on the side. There's going to be proctors that are at your front door, and they're going to be checking your ID and your exam ticket. And they, I believe, give you a little card that says your name and then where you're going to be taking the exam. So it's going to say like A132, and you're going to be in row A, seat 132. And you're going to walk into this large room. All of these tables are going to be there, and you're just going to walk over to your exam. You're going to sit there. It's going to be about 10 or 15 minutes of people just filing in and sitting down. And then once everybody's just ready and in there, you're still going to wait for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then they're going to start handing out some of the materials. Some of those materials are going to be simple scantrons. Then you're going to have the test books themselves, and you're going to get all of that material. It's going to take another 10 minutes, and then you're going to go and, you know, do the normal standardized testing. They're going to say, in box 1, fill out your name, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to go through that whole situation. They're going to explain the instructions of the test, and then at that point, your exam, which has a little slip on it where you have to break your seal, they're going to say, move your exam over, break the seal, and you may begin. And that's when you begin the bar exam. So one of the key pieces of advice I would recommend is trying not to get flustered, realizing it is a pass, no pass exam. And people have probably said this before, but really take it to heart. The very first question on the July 2018 bar exam, the written question, was a question that I knew probably 60% of, and the 40% I was a little bit weaker on. It was definitely flustered me at first. It seemed like a much more gray area question than a black and white question, and I got it. But going into the exam, I told myself, I'm going to miss points. That's normal. I just need to compartmentalize, and if I don't know the question, do everything I can to write all the information I know, get everything I can on paper, because the examiner is not going to know what I truly do know unless I put it there, and I'm going to try to get through all of it, and then maybe save a few minutes on that question and allocate it towards my next questions to try to make up the difference. That's exactly what happened. I went through and I outlined my question for about 10 minutes. I went through my exam for another 40 minutes. I got done with that first question in about 50 minutes. I didn't feel great about it, but I said, that question's done, let's move on. The next question was a professional responsibility question. I had been studying that topic for months, and especially the day before and the weeks leading up to the exam, knowing that it would be on the exam. I knew that could be the question that I make up points on. Everybody knows professional responsibility will be there, so everyone should be equally prepared, but some people for some reason don't put a lot of effort into it. I think that's a mistake. So when I got to the professional responsibility question, I knew that, okay, now it's time to make up my points that I probably missed on the first question. So I went through and I just absolutely detailed my answer, and I wrote as much as possible. It'll tell you on your little computer screen how many characters you write, and I wrote, I don't know, maybe 30,000 or 35,000, a ton, relative to what kind of the average is, because I knew that was where I needed to make up my points. And if I hadn't compartmentalized on the first question, I would have been too flustered to do well and recall on that next one. But I told myself, okay, I can miss points there, I can make them up here. And I felt good about that. And that was kind of my strategy going through. Then I got to my third question. The third one I felt pretty good on, not terrific, but again, it was compartmentalizing. I told myself, okay, I did well in question 2, but that question's out of the way. I can't rely on that one anymore. And so I went through and I just simply recalled all the information that I possibly could, took my time, outlined the question, and went through just like I did on the first 2. And saved a few minutes at the end. At the end, I went through and I made sure that all my formatting was correct. I underlined my certain points. I had my punctuation, my spelling all correct. They say that doesn't matter that much, but when you put yourself in the head of the grader and they're going through thousands of these essays and you get one that's incomprehensible, they're probably not going to read it as closely or give you as many points as you deserve as if one were, cleanly organized. So the first set of questions were done. After that was lunch. The key piece of advice I'd recommend for lunch is having your friend or significant other or family member be waiting there with lunch for you. The day of the exam, you're not going to know when your lunch break is. Because you don't know when you start exactly, you're not going to know 3 hours after that when you're going to take your lunch break. So it's kind of this block of time that you're going to have to give your friend or significant other or family member to wait there in the lobby for you. I was very fortunate. I had my wife waiting there for me at, I believe, 11:30 until maybe we got out at 1 o'clock with some, a sandwich and salad and a little bit of coffee. I think that's what she had. And she was waiting there outside the exam room, and I can't tell you how big of a deal that was. I got out of the exam room and was able to walk up to her and relax and not have to go rush off like the thousands of other people to the 1 or 2 spots near the convention center that serves food, try to wait in line and try to pay and try to hurry and eat and rush all the way back. I was able to use that time, that hour or so, to just eat and relax, get some water, use the restroom, and just kind of, just relax a little bit. I was moved around, stretched, and I would strongly recommend that you, if you can, have somebody waiting for you with lunch on the day of the exam. It's tremendously helpful. Being able to just go and eat your lunch may not sound like a big deal now, but on the day of the exam, you're going to be worried about so many other things. If you could take that variable out, it's all about taking the variables out, you're going to feel fine. You're going to feel much better than you would if you had to rush around, because you don't know how long the lines are going to be, what stores are going to be open, or if you're going to like the food that is near the convention center, wherever you are. If you can know, okay, I want pasta, I want a sandwich, that always sits well with me, and you have somebody waiting there with that, it's going to really be strongly beneficial to you and your exam taking. So after that, a lot of people will start filing back in the waiting room, just where you were in the morning prior to going in for your second half of the exam. Everyone's going to feel a lot less stressed because they've already taken part of the exam, and they're going to feel a little more acclimated. So the room is going to feel a little differently to you, but you're still going to be able to walk in, and they're going to file you in, check your ID again as you walk in, and sit down at your table. You're going to file in, and you're going to sit there. I would recommend not looking or talking to anyone else, just worried and focused. Okay, I saw professional responsibility, I saw contracts, I saw constitutional law in the first three essays. Likely it'll be a couple of these other subjects, and start thinking about those subjects in an outline format, just like you studied. That'll really help get you prepared mentally for what you're about to see on the remaining three essays, especially that third essay, the performance test, which you're going to see, and it's going to be the last question. I'm going to make a separate video where I talk about my strategies for the writing portion of the exam, which I'll be sure to upload here pretty soon, which really helped me organize my thoughts going into that test day, because that was the scariest part for me. Now you're going to sit down, you're going to get the same sort of booklet. It's going to have a slip where it's non-broken. They're going to tell you the same thing: break the seal and begin. You're going to go through that, and then take the rest of your exam, and that'll be it. And after that, it'll take you about 15 minutes for everyone to collect the materials, for you to file, and then they're going to say you're released, and then it's a mad stampede and everybody leaves. At that point, I went home. My wife was waiting for me outside of the exam room. We walked, we just relaxed. She asked me how it was, talked about it briefly, and then just left it at that. We went back, and I went to the hotel, took a shower. She actually had, right before coming to the exam, ordered some more pasta, the same thing I ate the day before the exam, and it was waiting for me there. It was very, very nice. We just ate it and relaxed, went to the pool, got some exercise, and just drank a lot of water, because you're going to be dehydrated after going through that day, and just took it easy. Did the exact same thing I did the day before the exam. Now day 2 is going to be a lot less stressful. Multiple choice for everybody, I would say, is going to be the much more approachable portion of the exam, because there's a limited amount of answers you're going to have. That being said, the strategies that I talked about earlier in the video are going to be applicable here as well. In fact, probably more so for me. So on the multiple choice section of the July 2018 bar exam, the first half of it I thought was incredibly easy, and the second half of it I thought was so difficult that I failed the exam. Let me explain. So the first portion of it felt like the easiest questions that you get in any of your materials, whether it's Barbary or your strategies and tactics for the MBE book that you're taking. And I went through those and I felt, wow, these are super easy. I feel great about them. They felt almost suspiciously easy. Compartmentalizing is important on each one of those questions, because you're going to get a question and you're going to say, this is really easy, and go on to the next one and get a few in a row. And if you're not careful, you can get lazy in your analytical approach and start thinking that you know every single question and answer as soon as it pops up. It's important to go through your strategies on each individual question to make sure you're not missing anything or glazing over any little tricks the examiners will try to play on you. Now, the second half of the day was very, very difficult for me. I got those questions and I remember thinking, this is impossible. I knew a lot of them, but some of them I thought there's, obviously 2 right answers here. What do I do? Compartmentalizing is so important, because some of those questions are going to be thrown out by the examiners. Some of those questions are practice questions. You really don't know. I had a lot of civil procedure questions, which I thought were probably, a lot of those were test questions, because it's a new subject on the MBE. And some of those were super hard. And I went through them, and you know, I just did the best I could on each one of them. And I compartmentalized. But I made sure as I was going through and compartmentalizing on each individual question that I wasn't taking too long on each one of them, because I tried to get as many points as I could by going through methodically as you're taught, and not spend too much time on certain long questions or too little time really on some of the seemingly easy questions. So that was really important to stay focused and clear and confident as you move through the exam. There's going to be ebbs and flows, and for me, definitely felt terrible in the second half. So prior to beginning the second half of the exam, I had lunch in the same way as I did in the first day, but I had a lot of caffeine. I felt that I don't have to worry about sleeping that night, so I'm going to just do everything I can to have as much caffeine as I'm comfortable with, which it felt almost liberating to do that, because you knew you were in the home stretch. You knew you had 3 hours to go, and that was it. And so that's what I did. I had a lot of caffeine, and I went into the second half of the exam ready to go, trying to think about some of the questions and the strategies that I had worked on for those 3 months. And then before you know it, there's 10 minutes left, you go through it, and you're done. And that's the exam. And it can feel incredibly good and relieving. You're going to feel a sense of, oh my God, I should have studied more. Oh man, I got to take it again. I got to talk to all these people and figure out what they do, what I do. Inevitably, you'll probably do that. You'll probably walk out, start talking about, oh, the writing question number 4 was really difficult. What did you think? Oh, I thought it was easy. And then you're going to start feeling either overly confident or not confident at all, most likely. You're going to have that temptation to talk about the exam. I'd strongly recommend not doing that. What's done is done, and it's out of your hands. You need to just go home and relax, because no matter what, you're not going to know for months, and there's nothing you could do about it. You just need to know you gave it your all, and now it's time to, no matter what the result is, just take time for yourself and relax. It's a very hard exam. It's very taxing, but now you can get back to your life, and it feels incredible to do that. Another thing, for me, I actually booked my hotel with a day buffer on each side of the exam. So I stayed there not the night before the exam, but the night before the exam, so that I knew what the hotel experience was really like. And so in the morning, I could prepare just like I would the day of the exam. Same goes for the day after the exam. I actually had a hotel booked through the day after, so that after my exam, I didn't have to worry about packing my stuff or figuring out how I was going home. I could just go to the hotel and relax, order a good meal, be by the pool, and just chill out. I would really recommend that you do that. You give yourself a block of time. It could seem like a lot of money, and I know it is, no matter what hotel you're staying at, but definitely try to give yourself that luxury, because you're going to need it. And that's it. That's the exam. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Just a test. All you have to do is prepare for it, give yourself the best shot to do well in the exam, and you will be successful. If you have any questions, please comment and I'll get back to you. I'll try to share as much information as possible, and good luck. One last thing I forgot to mention, and I remembered as I was editing this video, is that you should always keep the perspective that you get to take this exam. You don't have to take this exam. It's something that really helped me going into the exam. I remember thinking there's so many people across the world who don't get the opportunity to live in a country like ours, or people who even live in our country don't have the opportunity sometimes to go to college and law school and have the opportunity that you will have during this exam. It's always important to keep perspective and to really humble yourself and to think that you get to be excited about taking this exam and having the opportunity of potentially becoming a lawyer. Good luck.